Wake up, buyer payer people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhoads on the Buy Here Pay Here Morning Show. Take it away, you two.
Happy Friday.
Hey, your glasses.
I'm gonna
Hey, happy Friday, y'all. So we got we're just a little late getting started.
Well,
couple things on our setup, and just to
Jim had a hard night's sleep, and I'm ready about the same time that I'm always ready to get up, and he's usually been up for an hour, but he was back in bed.
Yeah.
And so I was like, sleep.
Can't explain.
Get a little bit extra sleep. So, because your day I'm not talking about you specifically, but in humanity, your day, if you don't get a good night's rest.
Oh yeah. It's rough.
Man.
Yeah, definitely. Focus, especially for me. It's like, it's hard, obviously, when you're fatigued to keep your mind straight.
Yep.
So yeah, that's, so this morning we've had quite a bit of stuff. We had a really successful V8 meeting last night. Had that first full meeting with group one, and
when he says full, he means like fully 8 people, all seats taken. And
so it was a good meeting. We're kind of getting in a rhythm on that and kind of figuring out what works and what doesn't work, and most
that's
things
what
work.
happens when you try new stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
we're kind of working,
but it's been really valuable. We've gotten some really great feedback. We soft whatever. There are seats available, whatever size that you have, and we will just continue to grow until everyone that wants to hang out and connect and compare and all of that. We can, we can accommodate. That's the nice thing about doing this virtually, is we can accommodate just as many people as want to participate.
Yeah, for sure. We can expand that as the demand is there. But I just was telling Michelle, I'm pretty proud of myself on the hashtag peers and beers. Like, that's part of the fun of this thing, is being able to bring a beverage of your choice to the thing. And so that's kind of fun.
We're like all hashtaggy, and we're we're kind of believers in that, because it's a way of being able to communicate in a really interesting, you hear all this stuff about SEO, all of that. Hashtags are just a really nice way of being able to connect you to other bits of content or information that is very similar to yours.
Sure.
So, peers and beers.
Yep.
Another one, White Hat Way,
Oh yeah.
all the stuff. So
with
hashtag away. It's all good. Kind of like, it's little threads that connect. And
some quick updates on next week. We have on Monday, Melanie Goldman, the dealer out of Indiana, will be joining us, and we'll be talking
I'm looking forward to that. It's the first time that she's going to be on the show.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about inventory and recon pipeline. I mean, she's got quite a story. She has really gotten deep into the service element of her business, and so she's learned some stuff, and she's got some things to share about what that experience has been.
And
so
it sounds like, and I'm looking forward to having the conversation with her, but it sounds like service is something she has in her dealership, and she had like it being done in the dealership, but she's felt a real strong desire to understand it.
Yeah, at a deeper level.
A deeper level, which is, like, mad respect for that. Because
so we'll learn all the stuff on Monday with her, and then Wednesday we have group 2 meeting, and then group 3 meets on Thursday night. We have to skip Valentine's Day is next week, so you're welcome, dealers. You're welcome. Don't forget that significant other for Valentine's Day next week. And then let's see, what other updates. So there's some stuff on the calendar. We'll bring more to you.
Dealer Roundup tickets
Dealer Roundup
are available
is on Thursday morning.
Dealer, which is next Thursday morning, and tickets range from $0 to $49.
Yeah.
So just
kind
go
of
ahead.
Fun new thing we're doing. You pick the price.
Yep. You can get information on Eventbrite. You can go to the Nation Television webpage or Facebook page. There's lots of different ways for you to reach that. So, if you great topics. We're going to be talking about inventory pipeline, obviously, Melanie. We're going to be talking about growth strategies, and we're going to talk about boosting sales.
Yeah, and that boosting sales session, that's coming together. That's a session that was a last minute session, and we've got some fun ideas. I think you'll see that name. We're going to call that 10 ways to boost sales in 2024 on a budget.
On a budget.
Yep.
On a budget.
Yeah.
So,
and the list is growing beyond 10.
Yeah. There are a ton of ways that people would like you to spend money with them to help them boost, so that they can help you boost their sales. And it's, it can get pretty expensive. And so we're going to give you some practical ideas and talk to some dealers about that.
Yeah. Nathan Syme from Alabama will be part of that conversation. Yeah. He's going to co-moderate all the sessions with me. And then,
who doesn't want to boost sales? Most everybody wants to boost sales.
Yeah.
So
if they got the budget for it.
Exactly.
So cost, and like in most businesses, and buy here, pay here, takes more capital to do more sales. So we got to make sure we got the money for it. But if those who are in a position to do it want to create more sales, we're going to give you some tips on how to do it without spending a ton of money.
It's always good information. So, today is more like, what's the news? What's happening out there in the world of buy here, pay here. And we don't really have any high level auto finance or automotive kind of stuff, but just some things that we wanted to chat about that we've seen and that deserve a mention. And, we're not necessarily going to be having a full blown podcast about it, but it's just some things to tickle your gray matter and get you thinking about a few different things. And it gives us an opportunity to weigh in. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And just kind of share what we're hearing. I mean, and some of that, like anybody, we're out there learning just like you are. I mean, we're picking up new stuff all the time. And so we have a handful of things that have come around, some of them quite specific. I think one of the general things that I saw in Facebook this week, and it happens all the time, but I just was more aware of it maybe this week, is that, one of the things that happens and kind of in this whole realm of, vendors being trusted and so on, when you see people raise the name of a vendor, and then like in these private Facebook groups, and a lot of the vendors are part of these. Some of these groups are they're private, but they do allow vendors in the audience. And sometimes you can just see the price that folks pay when, a name comes up and dealers chime in there and give their actual experience with these products, and it's not all rosy. And so it's a good place. It's a good forum to go get the information.
Well, you're talking about the dealer principal only?
No, I'm talking the one I'm thinking of at the moment is success, but it happens anywhere. I'm just saying that it's an example of, this whole thing about, on Wednesday, we talked about the Tim Bird and Dealer Ree stepping in and how their reputation is impeccable. We don't hear anything negative about them. And then you see these threads where people ask, hey, I'm thinking about such and such kind of service. What do you know about so-and-so, or what do you know about this company? And so the feedback that comes back on that is rich, because I could just tell you that some of the comments that I saw were from dealers that are known, liked, and trusted. And when they kind of put
they weigh in and
a stinging review, it's like, wow, that hurts.
Don't do it. Yeah.
So it's like it's a pretty good indication of what the value that people see in these forums.
It really is. I enjoy. We started the Dealers Only Principal group just for conversations primarily that are conversations you don't really want sales managers, collection managers, team members, all of that to be privy to, because there are a lot of things that it's just like, hey, this is, we need to know that it's going to be kept confidential.
Sure.
And, but I have to say, in success, I've really, really enjoyed watching its evolution. And it really is, it's just a really fun marketplace of ideas, thoughts, questions, and all of that. And it's such a beautiful thing. Tommy's done such a great job with that.
Yeah. And there was a new dealer in there that was just expressing a lot of gratitude.
Yeah.
This is gold, right?
It is. It really is.
So we, it's true. That is a good resource. It scares Michelle and me as coaches to watch people trying to go out there and run their business based on a Facebook dialogue, but it's like, that's everybody's got their own
you take, and right? Just like us, you take what our advice or coaching would be, grain of salt, does it fit with you, all of that, but it's I think across the board, it's just a good idea, grain of salt, think it through, make sure that it aligns with your the way that you're doing business and all of that. But it's really been beautiful.
I mean, I'll just say, it's one thing to go on YouTube and learn how to repair your dishwasher. It's another thing to start a buy here, pay here business based on, social media. So it's just something we see.
What I love about it is, we talk about how we're like super, super strong advocates for your national conferences and your state conferences, and being able to get together with other dealers and talk about stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of the things that we've tried to do is to take as much value to the web,
mm-hmm.
to the cloud, to, and so that people, wherever they are, it can reach them. Yeah. And, wherever they are in their business, wherever they are in the country, all of that they're able to learn whatever. And Facebook groups like this, which it's been so beautiful and so rich to watch. It's kind of turning into like a conference cocktail hour in a way where people just can get in there and ask questions and get the input of some really great operators.
Yeah.
And it's just super valuable.
Let me give some of the topics that kind of circle through that.
And this can I just mention what you mentioned?
I think you're going to.
I'm gonna. He knows me so dang well.
It's funny that she asked.
Well, it's because I'm trying.
What would I gotta say? No, not right now, honey. Not right now. This is not a good time.
Jim found out, and this is we do not claim to be super techie people.
Mm-hmm. I do okay for my age, but that's enough.
So he got onto Success, and he was able to just pull up the ones that have the top traffic on a post. Yeah. And it's like, honey, this is really cool, as I can see the ones that have had more people engaged in this conversation. And I'll just let you know right now, just like secret out of the gate, it's not, does anyone know a repo agent in Orlando, Florida?
That's not that.
That's not it.
Yeah, you kind of have to. That's the one thing about the Facebook forums. You have to weed through some of that kind of stuff. So among the topics, I just wrote down several that came up, and one was just last night. I was in a thread with Eric Malik. I hope I'm saying your name right, Eric, out of Texas, and he was asking some important conversation. Like he's asking about some specific things from his DMS about getting certain things related to the RFC and the accounting, and it's important. And I was able to kind of get in the conversation. He asked me back a few things, and it's really kind of in this realm that we've talked about plenty in the past about the limitations that software providers bring, which, by the way, that's another thread that came up. We had people coming in and saying, hey, I've got a new kind of DMS solution. I've got a new kind of dashboard solution. And there are people creating solutions. And I met with one of them last week, and I'm meeting with both of the people that I was in a dialogue with. I'm meeting with both of them this coming week because we want to collaborate. We want to help create solutions for dealers. There's tremendous need.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just, we just continue to say the DMS providers, because we're so deep inside, and because we've been inside the DMS systems with a number of dealers and currently have credentials for a number of them. It's just we have a perspective on kind of where the gaps are, right? And what is really limited.
And what's I think is kind of cool is that a lot of a lot of softwares have their perspective from their having to get in, integrate all of that. And I really appreciate that, we get in there and we're like with the dealer and we're talking and we're looking. And so it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool to be able to know when a question's being asked about this, it's like this one can, this one can't, this one can, this one can't, this one can. And it's pretty cool to watch. It's like, I've looked at that and we've asked and it's like, because not a lot of dealers have experience in multiple DMSs.
Oh, it's true. And they don't know what they don't have. Like sometimes a lot of them recommend a budget system and they're like, okay, but you don't realize what you don't have, what you're missing that these other systems are capable of. And so it's value.
And there's workarounds and there's things you can do that might add little layers of complexity and all of that. I mean, but there is.
So anyway,
Okay.
I just think, let me kind of run through the bullet points of all the different subjects that, were out there. I mentioned the software thing. There was a pretty interesting thread around a dealer in Florida who's looking to explore brokering or the sale of a dealership.
Isn't it the same one that had the trigger trauma story
same
too?
person.
It's like,
I wasn't going to mention names, but there is a dealership in South Florida, Broward County area that this woman was saying, I'm interested in at least socializing the idea of selling.
Yeah.
And there were quite a few dealers that chimed in and seemed to show genuine interest in acquiring it. So, don't know anything about it, not trying to sell it for the person. I'm just saying it's another example of what can happen in Facebook, right?
Yeah.
And so she literally, without hiring a broker, she had a lot of brokers approach her, but she definitely was able to socialize the idea that she wanted to sell and had a number of people step in, genuine, direct buyers. So that's interesting. And then insurance tracking, that came up. That was a thread that got a bit of attention. And there are some and that's one of the threads where somebody chimed in and said, we tried this one product and it was very frustrating, and so that's just kind of, that's good information to know that, somebody been there, done that, and then starter interrupt was another thread that got a lot of attention.
Wasn't
that one's
Jack
a couple of
that
weeks
pulled that
ago.
up? Yeah.
Or I guess,
I think it was started
by
Jack Carter.
Yeah, I wasn't typically going to do names, but yeah, Jack Carter.
Well,
started
Jack
the
doesn't
thread.
mind if I drop his name.
He doesn't. He does. But the thread was quite popular.
It was.
And we just had a conversation in our V8 group last night about starter interrupt, because we have a dealer in there who is, and let's be clear about the language, because I find this is sometimes there's manual disable, right? There's, if I go into the software and I can, because the customer's past due, I can go in and disable the starter, click a button. Next time the car is turned off, it won't start again. So that's manual disable. And then there's starter interrupt, which is really kind of a pre-programmed.
So it does it for you, sends a couple of chirps to them about the time that their payment is due. We'll continue chirping to them for a certain point until they just turn it off because they haven't made the payment.
And there's a lot to talk about there. And this part of the reason this thread, I think, was active is because there's some compliance stuff around that, and we don't need to get off into the actual subject, but it's just an example of where people can go and talk about the thing and make sure that all these considerations are out there. I can just tell you, we have the client, one of the V8 dealers is also a client of ours. And I know that they have never done anything but starter interrupt pre-programmed. The customer makes a payment, they get a code that's good for another 14 days until the next biweekly payment.
And how good is their, I mean, they do very stable, and they have very good repo rate.
Yeah. And they spend less on the collections team, because, so there's a lot of considerations there. They also pay more for the device. So there's just a lot of layers to the conversation to figure out what makes sense for any individual dealer out there. But certainly it's something to be aware of from a compliance standpoint. There are some states that have really frowned on and maybe, even made it illegal.
Yet fellow buy here, pay here dealers, what is it? Ford is introducing a new automatic repo system in their vehicles. You stop making payments, and that they are developing something. The car will drive itself back to the dealership.
That's a ways out.
But still, it's like, we talk about compliance. Yeah. And it's, some states not wanting it, but it's like even the big boys it's an option.
Yeah. And again, it's just the thread. Like, I didn't want to get too deep in any one of the things, but there's a ton to know about that.
Stop it, Michelle. That's what you say.
I'm just saying my purpose today was not so much to go so deep into any one of the topics, but just kind of give the illustration of what's happening and how people are chatting about.
Get plugged in.
Yeah. And so it's like, there's a lot of important stuff to think about there. And so it was an interesting dialogue, and there's more to talk about there because it is something that, we covered that before. We talked about starter interrupt on an episode, seemed like it was a year ago, but we talked about this idea of, our utility company, if we don't make the payment, it'll automatically turn off, right?
We know that.
Point. Yeah.
And it's like, I don't think very many people have friction around that. It's just because they know if this happens. And
that'll be regardless of your credit score. So, in this case, we've obviously
it'll lower your credit score if you have to do that. Yeah.
Well, if it goes to collections, it would. But otherwise, I guess the main thing there was that it's like, that's an example of something that people are going to need to figure out, and state laws. And this is the other dangerous thing about Facebook threads is that, you're asking questions of people that have legal implications, and they're they're not attorneys, and so they're giving you advice, and you're getting different advice, and people, it's not that it's wrong in a private thread to share your perspective, but if you're sharing stuff that is illegal in the state that the person is in, we don't know that.
Unfortunately, we can't put a disclaimer on every single comment. Yeah. Can I add one to that I saw that I thought was an interesting one to kind of get some feedback about chargeback payments made on credit cards, and that when people are paying a payment for someone and they put it on the card and whatever goes, they and just around some of the that it seemed like the majority of people were like, there's not very much that you can do to fight that, which to me is like, that's another good thing for us to be able to take to our state and national representatives and say, hey, how can we fix this? Because it's creating some friction.
Yeah, and that's been known. I mean, buy here, pay your dealers, and I think it's an example of different practices, because I know that there are buy here, pay your dealers. We hear it in the thread where they're talking about chargebacks being a problem, and as a result, they can't get certain merchant processing. They can't get they can't get a good rate, because of their chargeback history. And then there are other dealers out there that have almost no chargebacks. Like I remember, I've had a couple of dealerships I've been directly involved in, pretty good volume of transactions, and no chargebacks at all. Like it's a changing world, though, and so there's a lot of stuff to analyze in that. But that leads me into the next question, which, because a lot of the advice that I heard around that chargeback thing, I hear people offering advice that I think is unlawful. I'm not an attorney, but I'm just, and so that takes me to the other one where people are asking about the biggest red flag. So they're asking about, what's your biggest red flag in underwriting? And some of the feedback, and Tyler Simmons is tuned in this morning if he's not busy working a deal with a tax refund. So he could speak to this idea that, when you talk about compliance, and especially we had Steve Levine on to talk about the whole thing on that was a Tote the Note episode where we talked about the subjectivity element of underwriting. And listen, we're advocates for subjectivity. We think there always needs to be some layer of subjectivity in what we do, but there's very specific rules around that and underwriting. And so it's kind of the thing that I'm hearing sometimes, the things that you're hearing people talk about from an underwriting perspective are like, that might've worked 10, 20 years ago, but in today's compliance realm, we really need to get to these educational opportunities around compliance. And because we just, again, the Facebook threads just sort of illustrate the need and the lack of information and the need to get information to people, because again, we're not trying to be attorneys. I don't respond to the threads because I'm not an attorney, and I can't save everybody from themselves.
We pretend that we are every once in a while when we're play acting on the face or on the morning show. It's interesting, I think, with the whole compliance thing, that you hear, and I think it's compliance is actually a thread that is woven into every topic. And so like, how does this, and I'm sure that there are times that Steve Levine and others that are in the industry are just like cringing. And sometimes, Steve will he probably doesn't watch very often because it just keeps his blood pressure down. But it is compliance. And it's interesting to me how, we're as an industry in whole, that we are really, that there's a big push to let's just make sure that we understand what the powers that be in the state and the national stage consider compliant and not compliant. And it's getting threads into so many layers of our business. And so I just find it interesting, there's a reason why. There's a reason why, because there's a lot of operators out there that are doing things that are destructive or to their customers in whatever way. And it's interesting as I watch people's responses and I'll be frank. Sometimes we're not going to role play. This is me. We don't have to. Sometimes I just I'll hear a comment and I'm like, that dealer's an asshole. Sorry.
Oh, what?
Yeah, it's like, seriously, that is what your attitude is about this thing. And I'm like,
please don't mention names now.
I'm not. But it's like, it's interesting. And I'm sure that a lot of you see the same thing. It's like, you'll read a comment and you're thinking, okay, are they joking?
Yeah, right.
Because if they're not joking, you, my dear, are the reason why we have the government entities on our backs.
Right.
And so it's like,
yeah. Well, we can't save those folks from themselves, as we say. So, it's just like, that's part of it. But I would say, I think there's just a ton. I mean, obviously, if you're listening and you're not a member of those groups and you're in the Buy Here, Pay Here space, go find BHPH Success and find BHPH Boardroom, another great resource. If you're a dealer principal, you're welcome to come and join. We got one called Principals Only.
Yeah. Well, and just a little shout out with the boardroom. The boardroom is done by Amanda and Hugo Sanchez from Butler Sanchez, and it's kind of like where it's their stream of conversation. People that are part of their customers, their clientele base, and others that can add a lot of really good rich content around and there's a lot of rich content around accounting in there. Sure. So if you and RFCs and filing stuff and all of that, so that's a really good one to just kind of keep an eye on. And then dealer's principal only group,
our principal only group. And by the way,
conversations that you don't want all your team to be privy to. It's because we have every dealer sign a confidentiality that they promise confidentiality in that group.
Yep. And so, and we confirm, obviously we're vetting and make sure. So we've actually had, you mentioned earlier that some of the stuff about, we did have a interesting thread over there on pay plans for collectors in particular. There will be others, but it's what that environment offers us a chance to do, is talk about the stuff that is more sensitive. And so can't have it out there on YouTube, so.
Yeah. Do you have other ones? Cause I have something else.
No.
I was just kind of thinking about, just something that I observe in all of the Facebook groups and things is, and you mentioned this as part of like the software solution kind of thing, is it really amazes me the power of a positive word for a vendor out there and the power in a negative word for a vendor out there. And I'll tell you where I find that there's even more power is when it's not coming from us vendors.
Right.
It's not coming from us vendors. It's coming from the dealers, the ones that are, and it's just, and it's, I say we're vendors too. So, it's like, when I see vendors saying hurrah about a software, a solution, or whatever, whatever it is that a vendor's wear is in this industry, I'm like, that's fantastic. And when I hear a dealer say, oh my gosh, I had a problem, this is not as awesome, please stay away, all of that, yes, grain of salt both ways, because, there's obviously there's dealers out there that it's just like, they can find no fault. And that's cool. But there are also dealers out there that hate because they had a bad experience because they might have done something wrong or whatever. But there's such power in paying attention to what dealers are saying. About the things that are out there for helps or, all that.
I can go one step further on that. I think sometimes what I see is some vendors sort of, they don't give dealers credit for their level of intelligence. I think dealers can sometimes see through some things that are promotional and can say, okay, well, is that person giving me genuine promotion or is somebody in their pocket like that? I think dealers can see through some of that stuff.
And so and sometimes it's like, that's okay because I like the person. And so, whatever. And
it's not about that. It's just about like, it's about being genuine and authentic. And and when you're promoting somebody, and we talk about all the time, the importance of being agnostic and what the reason we use that word. So that thing about being agnostic, and it's just, we just see that when somebody is promoting somebody, that and dealers can generally see who's in bed with whom.
It kind of like it circles back to this thing that we were just talking about a few seconds ago about when, not a lot of, and it's also, vendor dealer. Not a lot of dealers have had their fingers in a multitude of offerings in a specific thing that, it's GPS, it could be DMS, it could be capital, whatever it is. But not a lot of dealers have had their fingers in deeply and looked at stuff.
Yeah.
And we find that true as well with a lot of vendors that they may not understand all of the nuances of different for instance, like a DMS, because they only know as far as that they can get in and actually do the stuff. And I think that it's kind of, it's when you're asked for a suggestion, I mean, it's obvious that dealers are not going to have a lot of experience with a lot of different vendors. And so they may just say, hey, this is one I've used and it's been good. And if they have some experience, please share. But it's like, especially in the vendor world, I think it's important to, because we all know multiple good operators.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we do. And it's like when someone comes to us and they say, hey, who should we, it's like, they're going to get 2 or 3 suggestions. And then they're going to say, who do you like them? It's like, well, we've worked with these ones the most. And so we really like them, but we haven't heard bad things and, But there's a lot of power in being agnostic. There's a lot of power. Did I mention the thing about I've mentioned it to Jim before, that whole agnostic thing. When I've had experience where I'm looking for a specific provider. And so I go to the people that work with type of providers. And I've said, give me 3 names, and I'll go to multiple. And then like where you find those, where the lines cross, that's where I'm going to go, because it's like, it's an agnostic way of asking for, what do you think?
Yeah.
Because like I said, in this industry, there's fantastic offerings in a lot of the things. And you might have a favorite, and that's okay. But it's like it's just I guess I would say that if you know of multiple, then let's just have a conversation about multiple and be agnostic about it.
And if you're gonna, like, I think dealers again are smarter than they sometimes get credit for. I mean, we certainly have a lot of respect for their level of intelligence and just do what they do, right? But I would say also that dealers can ask the hard questions. Like, if you're referring me to so-and-so, why? And so we can follow up with the question of, do you benefit financially from me choosing that one? Like, that's a fair question. Like, do you, so I want to know, because I just want to know if that's the
actually
one.
Been something that when Jim and I first started working together, and we'd have vendors all the time, because it's like, hey, if you promote us, anyone that comes through those promotions, if you refer us, that we're going to give you a kickback. And that Jim was like, nope, not interested. And I was like, coming from a different business world, it's like, why the heck not? And we had multiple conversations. It's like, I get it now that I've been in the weeds and I've seen the stuff, and it's just like, I totally get it. And because it calls into question sometimes.
So all I'm really saying is just disclose, disclose. Like, if we list 4 people and one of them is, one of the 4 that we list is Pastime, we have to say, be aware, Pastime is one of our founding sponsors. They are founding sponsor. They don't pay us a commission for when you go by, but we just have to disclose. That's the nature of our relationship. We're going to be transparent about the relationship. And we're even with our founding sponsors, we've made them all aware. We're going to continue to name all the people.
And we usually do. And it's probably because of my experience. It's like, it's usually around 3.
Well, and it's
or so it's like,
I
or
drove
as many
forward
or
the
as
other
many
day.
as we know, that, because there are some people in some parts of this industry. It's like, yeah, there really is no competition, and so
Yeah,
it's
sure.
like this is kind of where you want to go. But
No, that's true. But I
yeah.
think even if that were true, we would still try
Yeah.
to say what we know about the people
Yeah.
behind the
Oh,
product
yeah.
or whatever. But I'm just saying, I think really where I was trying to go overall is it's just important that people disclose, like if they have that sort of relationship
Yeah.
behind the scenes that, and dealers just have to ask the question and find out, is that, or do you benefit financially from that scenario? And, sometimes there's compatibility and it all makes sense for everybody, but I just think people need, in fairness, we need to be transparent about what that is. And that way dealers can make a better decision for themselves. That's what we're trying to do. If we like a certain product and we think it really is the best in class, like we really, from our perspective, they're the best solution, we still want dealers to make that decision. Here's the top 3. We would recommend you talk to all of them before you make that decision. We think they'll confirm.
It's kind of like, we love 20 groups. Love them.
Yeah.
What a benefit. And so when we get talking about that, regardless of whether or not it's Bren Carmichael or it's Bill Elizondo, whatever, it's like, hey guys, if you're thinking about doing a 20 group, make sure you check them both out.
Yeah.
Because there's really good options there for, and some may fit better for others, but it's like good people, good program.
Yeah.
Go make a choice.
And we generally will say, if we don't know the people behind the product, we'll say we don't know them.
People.
We can't really vouch for them as people. We don't know the
so
people
referrals are a really big thing that we see on Facebook, and it's such a beautiful thing because it's besides the do you know anyone who can repo my car in Orlando, Florida? It really is, and it's just a beautiful thing to kind of see and watch, especially when I see dealers weigh in on things. And I really appreciate that. So kind of moral of the story from today, get tapped in to different streams in social media, because you can have some beautiful, rich conversation and learn a few things.
Sure.
And you know what? And here's another thing is that I really believe you may say, oh, well, other people know better. And so what does my opinion matter, or what does my experience matter? It just does.
Right.
And so feel free to share it.
Yeah.
And because your experience may be communicated or have nuances that like someone else is going to go like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
And ding, 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 lights go off and so feel free to share and get involved and So
somebody's asking about next group to join for V8. They're talking about V8.
It depends on how big your
we just had our meeting for group 1, and that's for medium-sized dealers. We have meetings on Wednesday, and that must be Tuesday and Thursday
because we're
13th
trying
and 15th.
to
So we have, it's not too
Valentine's
late
Day
to get in those
available.
groups to review January data and the February
then we have
meeting.
another group that's for the same size that's just getting built, and we have
the end of the month.
We have at the end of the month. So for their first meeting, we're just kind of delaying it to the end of the month.
We just have our first dealer signed in that group.
Just
so
reach out to us and we can get you whatever
plugged into the calendar.
information.
So there's seats, and we're happy to get folks over there. I think you're going to find our folks that are members now are going to tell you it's a good value. So,
and it's compare and connect with a beer. Which is or dinner. It's all there. So I, when we were getting up this morning, I was like, this is going to be a short one.
Yeah. And here we are,
gift
38
of
minutes
gab.
later.
I mean, that's why you get,
that's stuff to talk about.
It's good stuff.
We're not going to run out of stuff to talk about from Facebook for sure. So
never.
Yeah.
So thank you for everyone for joining in. Anna Maria, I kind of whispered and while Jim was talking, thanks for your feedback too on, hot threads. I think it's something that we will visit. We've done it before in the past, but maybe we'll do it a little bit more often because it is kind of a fun conversation.
Yeah.
Again, thank you to everybody for joining us. We really appreciate you making us part of your day. And even if we're kind of quirky and silly and I ask like, are you serious? You just asked that question. It adds a little laughter. And, or just like whatever, but I'm learning. Have a great day, everybody. And we will see you on Monday.
Melanie Golden.